Talking about you got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, the snowboard master. Wait, no. What's poppin', Berk? How you doing today?
You almost lost. You almost lost your boy this week.
Oh yeah,
that was almost it. I stared death in the face and I said, "Not today, Satan." Not today.
You almost Sonny Bono'd yourself?
Worse.
How could it be worse?
Because at least that's instant.
Yeah.
That's true.
I went right over the side.
Did you really? Side of what?
Exactly.
A cliff? You really went over the side?
Yeah. I got.
It's funny because I was watching your video.
Here's the thing.
Why is there a video of it?
All right, here's
You're always
thing.
videoing.
No, there was no visibility. There's no way you're going to get a video. Here's what I've come to learn about snowboarding trips. I've gone with many of my friends, and they all vary in skill. The most daring are the most skilled and the least skilled. Those are the ones that are willing to take on the most amount of risk. The difference is the most skilled ones are doing it for a pretty hefty reward. The least skilled are just doing it to do it. And all we do is run the risk of death.
Yes.
So
Did you say we?
I mean, I just tagged along, but
Okay.
yeah, I almost died. My nephew was by far the strongest skier out of all of us, and I would say that he's like somewhere between novice and intermediate. That's not fair to him. Intermediate to like slightly better. The other three of us are stone intermediate. Like we can get down a black if need be, but it's not going to be graceful.
Basically, you belong on the bunny hill.
No, that'd be beginner. No, like we can get down a black. Your jokes just never land.
Oh, they land. You don't like them.
They're just not funny.
They land.
They're not funny.
The people laughed.
Berkey didn't land.
Luckily, I did land. So, like, you know,
That's a good joke.
We can get down a black if need be, but like it's not going to be graceful. We're mostly sticking to blues and greens, and depending on the difficulty of the blue, like there's going to be falls. No reason to challenge yourself beyond that. Like, you know, we went to Whistler. I think there's like 200 and some trails, 80% of which are blue or green. Like we got the whole fucking mountain. No. They got to go to the top. They want to see the peak. It's been closed for 3 days because of snow and lack of visibility. So we get in line. I'm like, all right, fine. How bad could it be? I've been to the peak of mountains before.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. You meander your way down. There will be a blue up there I can run, I'm sure. No big deal. We get in line, and there's this big flashing light, and it says, advanced skiers only, nearly no visibility, rough terrain, and like something else, you know, caution death. And I point to it. I go, it's not too late, guys. And they're like, don't worry, there's a blue up there. Like, what's the big deal? Like, blues are blues. And I'm like, blues are not blues once you're fucking at the goddamn top of, you know, the clouds.
In the middle of a blizzard.
In the middle of a blizzard. It snowed all 3 days.
I think this is back to thriving in chaos, right?
Yeah. No, I did not thrive. We get up there, we get off the lift, and it's just white. There's no horizon. None at all. There's snow and sky, and it's the exact same fucking color.
Seems like it'd be easy to get disoriented.
A little bit. So we drop in, and I'm just like trying to follow everybody else. And I'm mostly just like falling leafing it, which is where you turn your board sideways and you just control your speed. But it's a blue run, so like, you know, the actual terrain itself, not that difficult to navigate. So we start
what
going.
What is a blue run?
Beginner runs are green, blue is intermediate, black is difficult, and then double black is like advanced. Okay. So we get to this point where another thing you need to know about Whistler is they have so many areas where the catwalks flatten out and you have to like actually walk because there's just like no way to get enough speed, specifically as a snowboarder. And it's the most miserable experience on earth. So I've obviously never been down this run before. And we get to this point where I see people in front of me, like the visibility is not great. It's maybe like 10 feet in front of me, 20 feet at most. I see people in front of me and it appears as though they're making their way up a hill. And I'm just like falling, leafing it at this point, so I have no speed. So I decide like, okay, you know, I can obviously navigate the terrain. It's not that steep. I'll just drop in and get enough speed so that I can make it up this hill, because I'll be goddamned if I'm unstrapping again. I can't take it. So I drop in, and what I don't realize is it's not a hill. It's a cloud. It's not.
Oh, no.
It's not at all what I believe it to be. It's a giant fucking mirage.
Mhm.
So I drop in, and like a roller coaster, the ground just like disappears from underneath me. And what happened was, it wasn't a hill at all. It was
Down.
It was the start of a downward slope, and it curved.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
So what I ended up doing, I'm leaning back because I think I'm going up a hill. I'm actually going down a hill, and I maintain a straight line right through the curve. And on the other side of the curve is an embankment that leads to a cliff. Now, where I got lucky was because I hit it at a sideway angle instead of like, you know, veering off into it. What ended up happening was I just jumped the embankment and I land on my back, but my board is perpendicular to the cliff. So my board immediately catches in like the rock and the ice and the snow and stuff like that, and I just like stick. And so I'm like laying there, and I realize what just happened because like, you know, 10 feet above me is the run, and I look down and it's just a straight drop off into like boulders and a cavern or a canyon and everything else. I'm just like, bro.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of trees.
No,
it's just like a cliff.
It was not a run. It was just a straight down. Like,
Why do they even have a run that close to a cliff like that?
All of them
course,
are.
all of them are.
Every single one.
But they're and look, they're
dangerous.
marked. They're extremely well marked when you can fucking see.
Yeah.
Like I went right through a post.
Right.
You know, it was there. It told me not to do it.
Hence the flashing light sign that's telling you, hey, you know.
And like the big
you
thing
might
is
die
like,
if you go down
why was
run.
this run ever open? Like the best skier in the world, there's no way they could see more than an inch in front of them. What would they ever do?
Well, hold on a second. What did the rest of the crew do? They got through it all right?
They went, well, they're skiing, not snowboarding. And so like, you know, they're actually wide bodied facing down the hill, and they're just swooping back and forth and back. It's way more disorienting when you're like sideways facing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're trying to control speed.
You were the only one on a snowboard?
Yeah, which again, like for all the skiers, they'll understand. It's so miserable riding with a snowboarder because we're so much slower, especially like somebody who's not advanced. I'm so much slower. I have to strap in and unstrap it every single fucking run. Like, I don't know why they would do it to themselves.
Why wouldn't you just throw on some
Snowboarding is
skis?
fucking miserable. Snowboarding
No,
is
it's
one
the
of the
best.
most miserable things to do.
That's just simply not true.
It is. It simply
sounds
is true.
like
It's so much fucking extra
personal
work.
preference
It's
here.
like so. I hate it so much.
I only didn't like it because I was so awful at it. I was
Yeah.
the person they had to slow the lift down for because I couldn't even get off the lift.
That's not fun.
Yeah.
Luckily, I learned that in my lesson, how to get on and off lifts the very first day I went 5 years ago. But no, snowboarding's great once you get good at it. Like,
I'm fine at it. I hate it.
I was just so mad. I like unstrapped my board and I'm like walking up to them, and they'd been waiting for who knows how long. Like, and I wonder how much longer they would have waited before they actually thought like, oh fuck, maybe he's dead. But I like come walking up, and Jenny's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you hate us? I go, a 9. And it's only a 9 because I didn't die. It would be a 10 if I were actually dead. And I don't think they understood. They're like, what do you mean? Like, they just thought I was like falling or whatever. I go, I went over the fucking edge. They're like, the edge of what? I'm like, the edge of the earth, as far as I'm concerned. I was so mad. I'm like, we were having such a good time. We were riding groomers. I was able to just, you know, have a good time, pick up some speed, work on some things, get my technique down. Now all of a sudden we're in the middle of a fucking cloud. I don't know what's going on up here. I can't see my nose.
Well, glad you made it.
Yeah. No one would have missed me.
Sounds
That's not
miserable.
true.
You guys would have had Pads fill in today to give the Nacho breakdown.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Pads will be joining us half past the hour, as will Landon, who is coming from an eye appointment somewhere in Utah, as best we can tell. This kid, man, I mean, he's really got to get his shit together. I don't know why. If you knew you had to be somewhere at noon, you would book an appointment 45 minutes away. Just doesn't, you know, the appointment's at 11 and it's 45 minutes away. I'm not, that math ain't mathin'.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Tell me about it.
But he does deserve a little bit of kudos. He had a good Sunday, shipped the 40K high roller.
Yeah.
I love that we're just going to give him his love while he's not here.
Yeah, of course. That's what we do.
Just shower his ass the
not
second he walks through
Not
the
gonna
door.
be nice to him when he gets here.
Obviously.
Doesn't deserve it.
Fuck.
So yeah, he picked up a nice little 19.5, 19.6 for this one.
Nice.
Was a big Sunday. He also bagged the Venom, which he did not cash in that. Was that correct?
I do not think. No, he did. He did.
He did cash?
If you make day 2, you get 2,500 back,
Oh, okay.
and then your bounties. You're in play for bounties. So
Okay.
he did cash the Venom.
Okay. So we made a little bit of money then.
Maybe.
It was a big Sunday. Big Sunday,
Depends
big
on how
Monday.
many bullets you're in for, because it definitely wasn't one overall.
Well, I just knew that I was free rolling profit if he cashed the Venom. So I think that he did okay.
Nice.
But yesterday I think was a big bloody day as well. You know, just goofballing around. out here
Goofballing
clicking
around.
buttons. Like what?
You love being a
What are we
goofball
doing?
sometimes.
Speaking of
you know?
being goofballs, I had a fucking blast at VR.
I didn't do the
Man.
VR, but
You really
That
should
was
have.
so much fun.
there's 2 things I don't want to do. I don't want to do any VR because I'll get a splitting headache. The other one, I don't want to go on a fucking ski lift again because I feel like I'm going to die.
Okay,
I've never had vertigo, but it started on a ski lift.
I think
Imagine if it was virtual reality skiing.
right. I think you need to try a ski lift again to see if you like you can get over
Do you
the sensation.
realize I can't go on fucking escalators right now?
Okay, well that maybe would require seeing a doctor.
I literally I get on an escalator and I'm my balance just goes completely out. I'm like holding on. I'm like, holy shit! I get weak in the knees.
Imagine,
it's all fucked up.
Imagine if they took the horizon away from you and you just had a cloud and snow to try to decipher which one was which.
I'd be fine with that.
That's literally the definition of vertigo. Like that's as disorienting as it comes.
All I know is the going up part was bothersome to me.
Sure. The VR was incredible. You missed out for sure. We played Squid Game at Sandbox VR at Venetian. I got to tell you,
Actual Squid Game, not the poker version.
right. Although the poker version would be
In VR?
in VR. Here's a little. I think you can just run it as background. So this was the Rainbow Bridge. If you guys saw the real Squid Game, I absolutely
This was so much fun.
falling was so fun.
It really felt like you were falling.
Yeah, because you even have like the little air things like blowing up. on
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have like little beads on your vest that like vibrate and like it moves up and down.
So my body
actually gives you the feeling of falling.
Yeah, so I think I had a sensation that I was falling.
Right.
But I didn't physically feel like I was falling. Like I
Right.
knew I was grounded.
No, right. Yeah.
But you're right that like seeing the way the visual worked, where it was just like flashing before your eyes. Yeah, sure. Walk right in front of my shot. Don't worry about it.
It's okay.
You know. It's fun.
He's pretty dumb.
Oh, you thought we were just waiting for you?
15 minutes and Patrick's right there.
It's 20 minutes.
No.
Yes, and he was told to come at 12:30.
Wow.
What do you
Unlike
think this
you.
is?
I got scammed.
No, you did not get scammed.
I got scammed.
Absolutely none of this was you getting scammed. This was you booking an appointment 45 minutes away, an hour before you're supposed to be
Yeah,
here.
like who scammed you?
I mean, I saw Patrick outside. I was like, oh, I guess they waited.
Ah, I see. So you're just outside bullshitting with Patrick. For
No,
like
he was
10
literally
minutes.
trying to find out which. I actually greeted him to get him in the door. He didn't know where he was going. He was lost, just like Bolt.
He would have figured it out. There's a lot of cars, a door.
There were a lot of cars when I was outside.
Okay. Do you want to be the hero for the day?
I was no hero.
You want your pat on the back
I'm not a hero.
for somehow getting this. You're 20 minutes late and you saved the pod. Congratulations.
I'm on time, actually. I
Good
found
job,
Patrick.
Landon. Hey,
Thank you.
congratulations on your win
See,
this
we
weekend.
weren't supposed to do that. We were gonna shower him. Remember?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, don't
something
worry. We can
afterwards.
compliment sandwich it. Also, thanks for coming out for my birthday VR. That was a really good time.
That's
I
a
feel like
good
that one's
friend
low.
right there.
Great friend.
Obviously, he did not show up.
Everybody else in this room was here.
Yeah.
You know, we all had a great time.
Patrick
It
was there?
fun.
I mean,
Yeah,
he was
Pads was there.
He was actually there in
Yeah.
virtual reality.
Yep.
He was,
That's why I did the investigation.
yeah, exactly. He was doing the investigation from there. He was actually controlling red light, green light during the Squid Game. He was the me, whatever the fucking noise it is.
Wow, what's this guy doing here?
He had to go to the vet this. I had a lot of vet appointments this morning. Had to take Gatsby to get his knee lasered. He's struggling.
His knee lasered.
Yeah, they're doing some laser therapies. It's looking better. He's putting a little bit of weight on it. I don't know. And then Pip,
How did he get up the stairs?
I carried him.
It's a lot better
What kind of
than
question is
them
that?
Oh, yeah,
telling you to give him like turmeric or something.
Turmeric. Yeah. The last one was, do you have that essential oil that I gave you? And I'm like thinking to myself, like, no, I threw it away. And I go, sure. She goes, yeah, you should rub that on his hip a little bit more. The heat will help stimulate blood flow. And I'm like, the heat from an oil in a bottle? Shut the fuck up, lady.
Wow.
Give him pain meds. Look at him. He's decrepit.
He is.
Poor guy.
He's breaking down.
He's degenerating in front of our eyes.
He's gonna be just fine though. He's gonna be. Look at his eyes. He's got
Yeah.
young eyes.
I saw this thing on
should get his eyes
on
checked.
Instagram today that you could
His
slap
cataracts.
you could slap Landon and he'll live like another 10 years.
I would. I mean, I don't know why you picked Landon. You would definitely be first in line. But then I was supposed to get Pip spayed today, and for some reason she's having like problems with her liver, so they just keep giving her blood work and charging me $500 a pop.
What's wrong with her?
Apparently something.
She's too good looking.
Here's what I don't get. The first time I took her to get spayed, they were like, we have to do blood work. Okay, fine. We do blood work. It was free because I paid for a year of her puppy maintenance, so to speak.
Who do you pay that to? Them?
The vet, yeah. So it comes with like all of the tests and everything, right? They come back, they say her liver scores are high. We're going to give you this medicine and retest her in 30 days. I go, okay, great. Give her the medicine, take her back 30 days later. They retest her. They go, it's actually even higher this time. And I go, okay, that doesn't sound great. He goes, okay, but we have a plan. We're going to spade her. And while we're in there, we're going to take a liver biopsy and try to get to the bottom of what's going on. I go, okay, great. He's like, all right, I'll see you next Tuesday.
So this was free still.
Up until this point, no, I had to pay for the second blood test.
What?
So that was the first $500.
What kind of scam is this?
Well, you know,
What kind of racket they run?
first one's free. The next one is double the price.
I thought it was puppy maintenance, and you get it for a year.
Well, yeah, but they didn't count on her being sick. So now they scheduled her for today to be spayed and get the liver biopsy, right? 7 a.m. drop off. I'm like, all right. Have Conrad drop her off because I was sleeping. And
By the way, time the fuck out. Did you even budge when I took her out of your bed this morning?
yeah, I opened an eye.
Okay, because I had literally had to fucking grab her
I
and
know.
carry her out. And I was like, I don't even think this motherfucker woke up.
I saw what happened.
I see it all.
Yeah, I see everything. Don't worry about it. So I go pick her up today, and she's just right as rain. I'm like, okay, they clearly didn't do anything. And they're like, that'll be $500. I'm like, for what? They're like, blood work. I'm like, what are we finding out? I bet I can tell you what it says. Her liver fucking enzymes are high. Like, when are we operating?
So she didn't get spayed.
They did nothing, and they charged me another $500. I don't
Man,
understand.
you got scammed so bad.
Of course.
What
They
kind
see
of
me coming.
What kind of racket? Look, this is almost as bad as my dentist adventures.
It's up there. It's up there. This is on me. If I wasn't out of town, this wouldn't have been an issue. But like, they knew I was leaving, and then
The
all
vet
hell-
knew you were leaving.
Yeah, and it's like they knew the podcast was off, so everybody took to the streets to fucking cheat. The entire internet purge happened over one weekend. They're like, "Don't worry, OnlyFriends isn't here to talk about it. We're all gonna go nuts."
When's the last time you got your eyes checked?
3 years ago.
And your vision was
Perfect vision. HGH. It's the key to keeping great vision.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm the only person in my family without contacts.
Does it improve
lenses.
vision or
Yeah.
just keep vision?
Asbury Bonds. Improvement.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
It improves all your organs.
Dude, it's crazy.
My skin, you know.
I thought I didn't need to get my eyes checked, and the difference between having like my vision was like minus 0.75, which they said you don't need glasses, but here's what it looks like when you have them.
Mm-hmm.
Very different.
It's a change.
Very different.
Yeah.
I have better eyes than you, and when I put on glasses, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is like, oh, it's eye-opening, literally. You can see a whole new world.
Shout out to a plug.
Getting my LASIK surgery was probably the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
LASIK was amazing.
The thing is, I don't know if he's actually being honest or not.
No, he
Why?
did.
Why would I lie about getting
Yeah,
LASIK?
You
this is
lied
the-
about winning a bracelet in the
Oh my
1500
God.
deuce to
For
7.
one,
I can't believe you
was
listened
goated.
to
This is what makes Guapo such a good liar. You can't tell when he's telling the truth or when he's lying. I know he's telling the truth because I know he got LASIK.
I thought he was telling the
But
truth,
like-
but
like
like,
he-
Pets,
has the
welcome
same
to the
tone.
studio. I just want to acknowledge that these guys stepped all over my intro to bring you in
I
and
stepped through it.
transitioning.
Who's
and,
these guys?
Well, it started from Landon and then went right around the room about all your fucking eyes. No one cares.
I didn't say anything about my eyes.
What's your
My eyes
business?
are on you right now.
Wait, you're the one that started the eye conversation talking about HGH, I thought.
Yeah.
No, Landon did.
All right.
I just asked last time he got his eyes checked.
I was trying. I was talking about the purge, and Landon goes, "When's the last time you got your eyes checked?"
Every time fucking Berkey gets sidetracked, he has to let everybody know.
I'm just trying to move on.
Listen, I was gonna do something. You fucked it up.
Would you move the show along?
Go along.
Christ Almighty, man!
Why do you have to move along? Why can't we just chill out?
Because the show
Just a couple guys.
is
being
about
dudes.
our guest.
Well, let's try to make him more.
Who spent
Phil,
4
more
days,
honored.
4 days combing through an endless barrage of nonsense nacho hands.
Don't forget 2 sessions of VR at the Venetian as well.
Yeah.
We're long past that.
Oh, come on. That was a great callback.
I actually didn't get that one.
Because we said he went
No,
to VR
I get
with
it
us.
now. Thank you. I
Look,
understand.
Guapo, don't let him remove your creativity. That was good, and that's on him.
Thanks, puppy.
Yeah, I didn't get the call back. I'm sorry.
Mark, who's our guest today?
You guys are the fucking worst. I can't wait to burn this goddamn shit. I'm actually excited for it. Pads, welcome.
Hi, good to be here. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good evening. Good night.
It's a good afternoon for good afternoon.
It is.
All right, let's cut to the shit here. Why is Nacho not being smart about his social media post?
Was he not smart about it? I'm not sure. Was he just I know Nacho, whenever I'm with Nacho, he's doing a million different things. So it doesn't really surprise me that, you know, he had like something left on the back of his screen or whatever from before. When I play with him in Bellagio, he's playing mixed games, but he's betting soccer, he's playing apps on his phone, he's playing like Raz on his phone, but Stud Live, which is very difficult to do because you need high cards then low cards. So I'm kind of used to Nacho doing many, many different things at a time. And I feel like yeah, he probably had the GTO Wizard open and he like had a new thing that his mind wanted to do for a few minutes and something else. Then he said, oh, I need to post on Instagram. And then like his screen probably had like a bunch of different stuff on it. And he just, Nacho lives in his own wild world, as most people who know him know how he is. I'm not sure if you've played with him before. Maybe.
Oh, I love Nacho. We used to play a lot of private games together.
Yeah, well, Nacho can't really
Nachito.
he can't sit still. He can't do one thing at once. He likes to do many, many things at once. So, yeah, that's how he is usually.
Yeah, I thought Caitlin's impersonation of him was actually quite spot on. I'm pretty sure every game I've ever played with him, he was dealt in exactly 0 hands and was just kind of at the bar chatting up the girls. We should probably run that clip and get it out of the way while the tone is still somewhat light.
Hola, it's me, Nacho Barbaro, ACR Team Pro. I understand that, how do you call it, small-minded people online, they think that I cheat. I not cheat, I never cheat. Well, in No Limit Hold'em, I never cheat on No Limit Hold'em. As young magic player, I cheat on many beautiful women, because, I mean, look, it's just, but back to subject. I understand these people think that I'm capable of shit when really I just a goofball, silly guy. I do finger guns, I do winks, I do dances. I do dances when I am joyful. I do joyful dances for a 42-year-old goofball little boy. I did not even think this was GTO application. I think this was, how do you call it, a meme, a meme, a York picture. I think this was York picture, like from the Sidman in England, Betty Carter. I think this is one of his York pictures, so I click on because I like to laugh. I like to be joyful. If you don't believe me, I hope you watch the investigation from my, how do you call it, less attractive and charismatic friends from high roller community. They are smarter and they would know how to cheat, but I don't even know how to cheat because I goofball. It's a goodwill, yes sir. I forfeit my stakes in a Venom tournament, and even though I am team pro and these are free rolls and it is of no financial impact to me, I do think that this is a good gesture, and it should be enough already. So hopefully this is case closed, and I'll see you on the field.
All right. That was great, as always. Kind of jokes aside, though, I think that the fact that this happened the way that it happened led to a big kind of like splintering of the conversation at play. And I think that you took it upon yourself to kind of, on one hand, get to the bottom of like Nacho's actual intentions here, which I think is important. We don't want to have witch hunts anytime that there's any sort of implication that somebody might be doing something nefarious or not. But then there's the whole other side of it, which is the operator's response to the availability to all of this, as well as, one of their sponsored pros kind of coming out and just being a goofball kind of guy. Let's since you're here, let's focus more on the former. What drove you to kind of like want to get involved in this and maybe get to the bottom of whether or not Nacho should be strung up by his toes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is that poker's image, like online poker's image, is so bad. When I play with in Bellagio, every time I go to a tournament in Cyprus, like, oh yeah, I don't play online poker because everyone's using these tools and they're cheating. So when like an ambassador of the site with the biggest tournament in the world, basically the Venom like online tournament in the world, looks like he's cheating, I thought it was important to kind of show, amateurs or maybe like semi-professionals or whatever, that not everyone's cheating, because if they see this, they just assume, oh, like even the ambassadors of the site are cheating. So I wanted to I kind of knew almost straight away that Nacho probably wasn't cheating just from knowing him. So one, I wanted to, people think I'm like really close friends with Nacho. I've probably met him like less than 10 times in my life. It wasn't necessarily trying to stick up for a friend. It was more trying to stick up for the integrity of online poker. That I don't want everyone to just assume that every tournament is just full of cheats and all professionals cheat. Like whenever I post anything online on Twitter, it's like, yeah, but you have a stable and you cheat, or yeah, but you play high stakes online and you must use these tools. Like I'm kind of guilty by association. Let's say like Brazilian stables, they cheat, so my stable must cheat. Or some people use RTA. Ali uses RTA, so I must use RTA. So like whenever I ever post anything on social media, it's kind of like people jump on it, and that's why I said like the quote, like haters gonna hate, because they will always just hate, always, But I wanted to kind of show people that that Nacho probably wasn't cheating, because I think if it was generally accepted that Nacho was cheating, then that's a very bad look for online poker. And for me, I want online poker to look as good as possible. One, I'm an ambassador for an online poker site, and two, I've played online poker as a career for 16 years. So trying to show it in the best light, I think, is quite crucial. So yeah, that's basically where it came from. Even though I don't play ACR or the Venom because I have the same concerns as these amateurs have, I still thought that in this case, Nacho is innocent, and it was in probably my best interests for ACR to look guilty, so they lose market share, my site gains market share. But that's not really how I like to. I don't want to succeed from like fake news,
Yeah, I think. I'm pretty objective when it comes to this. Oh, maybe that's not even fair to say, but I guess a better way of stating is I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm not objective because I'm probably a lot more doomser, a lot more of a doomsayer for online than you would be. But I don't really have a dog in this fight, and I don't really care about the outcomes. But I do appreciate that you, as a voice of the community, who, when you speak, it carries some weight, was quick to kind of ask people to put the pitchforks down, because I think that too often the mob mentality does want kind of blood. They want that blood sacrifice, and being falsely accused is a really scary thing in life in general. maybe less scary in poker because like the worst thing that's going to happen is your rep takes a hit. But like when you extrapolate this out to bigger picture things like, being arrested falsely or something along those lines, you really need somebody who's going to have your back and advocate for you. I think the general pushback from the consensus is, would you do this for just anybody? Because that's where I think like the whole, Nacho's my friend, which I think if anybody knows the two of you, it's more that you're like peers. You run around in the same circles, you play the same games, whatever. It's not that you're
hanging out every Friday, going to VR.
Right, exactly. You're not just.
Nacho wasn't
I've
there.
never spent a minute with Nacho outside of a poker room before.
You got to protect your whales.
Like outside of a casino, we've never spent a second together. Like we're literally like
no coffee tours.
Yeah, we're colleagues or like whatever in that regard. And it was more like also I was affected massively by the bot scandal last year, where like 10 million or so was, let's say, cheated, and I wasn't satisfied with how like the investigations or whatever happened from ACR's side. So I didn't think that ACR had I didn't know if ACR had the either tools, personnel, or reputation to do their own investigation, but I knew that I would do a good one myself. Like I know what you need to look at here. So I thought I'm going to do a job which one will be done in 2 days or 3 days rather than say 5 months or whatever the bot stuff was, and two, it's going to be done to a level which is acceptable, which I don't think the bot stuff was, so if people then think I'm trying to hide for him, I was going to post all the data I had so they can do their own investigation too, and if it takes them a week or whatever, then sure, but I know I can do it quicker. Not necessarily better than most, but I can do it quicker than most people.
Yeah,
I think.
It's okay. The bots are goofballs too.
What were your overall findings once you went through the entire database?
Well, I wanted to look at some different stuff. I wanted to look at one, get access to his GTO Wizard account to like see, because GTO Wizard like supplies your like your timing of doing everything. Like they just give you a list of what did you look at what time. So I thought if he was looking at things every like 4 minutes or whatever, then first of all that would show a lot of guilt. But it was like 5 hours between most of his searches. There was like a couple between like an hour or whatever, but most of them were like 6 or 7 hours apart. So first of all, you needed to clear his own GTO Wizard account. Then a lot of people said, well, maybe he was multi-account in GTO Wizard, which one is very far-fetched and unlikely to do, but two, it's possible. So I wanted to see how his overall gameplay was and how that would compare to like GTO Wizard if you were like using it to cheat. So those different parameters we looked at, like pre-flop, how he was playing pre-flop, which was mostly incorrect, and then how he was playing post-flop, which was also mostly incorrect in terms of how GTO Wizard would say, again, there's a lot of like Nacho can still have people thinking I'm calling him a fish. It's obviously not true. No. I think he's playing very different to how you would do if you're cheating. He's building up dynamics, or he has metagame or whatever, and that's where he builds his edge from. He's been a professional for 20 years playing that style, which was also why a lot of people thought he was innocent, because that's how he's made his career. So I just wanted to make sure that he hasn't just overnight turned into, Linus Love or whatever, which I can confirm he hasn't. And you can see this in all the, GTO. It's nice that you can look through it yourself to see how he's playing and get a feel for it, which is what I did. But also GTO Wizard has really good tools where you can compare his gameplay versus how GTO Wizard would play if it was just given like every spot to run. And he was very far off from that. So people who've cheated in the past have usually not looked at how to play, let's say, button versus big blind, but they would just look at big pots like 3-bet pots and 4-bet pots, because this is when the pot size is bigger, the game tree's smaller, so it's simpler to solve. And so I looked at all the 3-bet pots because I thought this would be if I was going to cheat, that's how I would do it. And I'm not saying he didn't have a clue, but he played very differently or had a different approach to how like a solver would have an approach in these spots, Yeah, it goes deeper, but like GTO Wizard has, as you will know, like it uses like a certain sizings for certain spots, so it's very like B25, B40, B67 kind of heavy, and you often see when like new players come around to high stakes, if it's like an unknown account and they start using like B40 everywhere, it's very suspicious. But if they're using like B33 or B50, very often it's like someone just from a live environment, because that's kind of what live players do, like bet third pot. And Nacho basically in every single spot, in 3-bet pots, 4-bet pots, single race pots, just like B33 in every single spot basically, which is very indicative of someone who is not using the solver, I would say.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess like going a little bit further off of that, because based off of the screen grab that he himself posted, it would indicate at least that what he was looking at was something pre-flop heavy. What, if anything, do you think is possible as far as I guess like navigating those waters? I know we've had this discussion a lot in the past as far as like, are pre-flop charts RTA or not? And in the past, it was always like, well, it depends on the terms and conditions of the site that you're on. Some allow it, some don't. But I think as we continue to advance, especially with being able to use, ICMizer and Hold'em Manager and like other tools that allow you to solve for specific junctures of events, these preflop charts are going to become a lot more powerful. But like with Wizard, for instance, there's really no fair play check when it comes to these preflop things. So I know that like throughout the database with Nacho, you were able to take a much deeper dive and examine, but the community at large can't really police this aspect of it the same way that they can post. How do you feel that impacts the online environment?
Well, I mean, as Landon will tell you, like max late reg in tournaments is seen as like the best way to get an hourly, because when ROIs decrease so much because so many people cheat, let's say your ROI before was like 50% if you started at the start of the tournament because you got so many free gifts and whatever. Now maybe your ROI is capped at like 5% because of like structures and stuff. So you may as well, instead of playing like 7 hours of late reg or whatever some of these ACR tournaments have, you may as well like max late reg and you get like 12 big blinds. And when you max late reg, there's basically no post flop. So if I was going to recommend someone like, let's say my cousin who, let's say, comes out of jail and wants to make money, I could say to him, hey, just like follow these preflop charts, max late reg every tournament. You don't even need to worry about post flop because you're not going to go post flop because you have 12 big blinds and everyone else kind of realizes going post flop isn't really advantageous. Around about, I'm not sure exactly, I would say 90% plus of decisions you'd make in a tournament would be preflop based, maybe even more, because you're going to probably see a flop. You're going to VPIP something like 20%, and I would say 5% of the time you VPIP, you're going to go post flop, something like that. So that's like 1 to 2% of the time you're going to see post flops. You don't even need to study at all post flop. You could just use the available charts with no delay, and you have very big time banks on some of these sites, and just literally cheat your entire way to heads up. Like it's very possible to do that, which is scary to think about. You don't need to know post flop at all, and the tools are available really easily to use and pretty simple to use and undetectable. There's no delay. It's hard to detect because, it's just pre-flop. So, yeah, I mean, if someone wanted to get like 10 horses to just do this and all cheat together and even share cards, whatever, it's just like, it's completely possible. And it's going to go more and more in that direction as we continue as more people start to lose their bankroll and give up on online poker. The people who are going to come through and cheat are just going to do this like max late reg, tank every spot, share cards, and do the GTO Wizard no delay stuff. So,
you've been very outspoken about kind of wanting to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, with GTO Wizard, the availability of it to the general populace, and maybe adding a delay or some sort of safety measures such that it's not able to be so readily accessible as a cheating tool. I guess with even like what you just outlined there and the direction that online's kind of heading, do you think that that's more of a Band-Aid, or do you think that actually can be a fixture and a permanent solution?
I think you need to probably change the structures of the tournament too, like end late registration earlier so you are forced to go post flop. Like right now, late reg on ACR and some tournaments ends with like, Landon, I don't even play there anymore because of these reasons, but
eight big blinds.
Big blinds, that's what I thought, yeah. So if you end at 8 big blinds and you're like 2 double ups away from getting into the money, playing for 6 hours of late reg in a 5% ROI tournament is like really, really silly to do. So I would cut late registration down. I would make late reg close with a higher average stack size. And also, it's not fun for amateurs. Like, say an amateur, let's imagine an amateur who likes to gamble, and he plays his tournament for like a few hours, sees post flop a lot, and then like 100 people jump in with 12 big blinds. The average stack size goes from like 30 big blinds down to like 14. There's never any more flops before. You can't play any more suited hands. Like, this is going to drive, first of all, like, regs are going to get cheated from cheaters, and the amateurs are obviously going to like, it's not fun for amateurs to to change to play like this? I mean, I don't know many amateurs who want to play like every single reg max tanking so they can get into the money quicker and no one's seen a flop. Like, this is not poker. Like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's crazy to me that this is what online poker MTTs are right now.
Isn't, and maybe I'm a little bit misguided as far as like what constitutes an amateur online, but like, isn't the qualification of a fish very different online? I feel like when we think amateur, we think like Paul Fua, who's like very sharp and certainly a winner in like most live fields. Dominic Nietzsche put up a tweet, and I found it to be interesting because if you equate the language 1-to-1 of like both online to live, I think that there's a very big disconnect between like what he's talking about and like what the average consumer of poker would understand. But he said, the truth is, if people got banned for what Nacho allegedly did, there'd be zero fish left on any site. Fish love looking at GTO Wizard while donating at the tables. Yes, it's mainly fish who cheat, but they still suck. Anyway, a lot of people here accusing Nacho of the worst for having preflop range up either are entirely clueless or outright malicious. The man has 4 tables up. He's not in some unique river spot solving and executing perfectly balanced strategy. Also, if this shit scares you, the best time to stop playing online poker isn't now. It was 20 years ago. Grow up. He's not playing perfectly because of his back or because of what's in his background. And I'm sure a bunch of the accusers know this too, but they just want to talk shit. What to me, like that statement, well, it's twofold. One, I think he's heavily incentivized to put that statement out because he is a competitor to GTO Wizard. But two, that completely goes against the grain for what I understand the general user base of GTO Wizard AI to be, as well as the people who are able to weaponize it. I don't think in any capacity it's what I would envision as a fish. You know, I would never imagine, and I mean this with all due respect, he's a lovely human. I love him to the core, but I would never imagine Bill Klein being on the other side of a monitor scrolling through GTO Wizard, max time banking, you know, min caching and playing perfect ICM ranges.
No, and like when we play on GG and these sites and the fish who play there, they're usually, you know, the Chinese or the Russian fish, and they're certainly not doing this either. They're very splashy, they're very loose, they're very they want to see flops. You know, you have like Romanashka and all of these guys. There's a lot of them, and they're not doing this. I don't know about Dom's information about fish versus pros who buy GTO Wizard or use GTO Wizard, but I would imagine that all pros have some access to some kind of database, whether it be GTO Wizard or something else, whereas not all amateurs do, you know?
Right.
And also, you can have access to something, but using it's different having access. Like, I'm sure I don't like using the word fish, but we will continue using this word. But
fun player, sure.
Yeah, let's say a fun player has access to GTO Wizard. It doesn't mean he wants to use it in game. You know, it's like if I'm gonna go and play, let's say I play like a $1 PLO tournament or $1 Hold'em tournament, like relative to, you know, bankroll to a really rich fish. I'm not gonna want to use it. I'm there to gamble. I'm there to have fun or whatever. You know, so it's like I wouldn't even want to use it. Maybe afterwards I want to check some interesting hands or whatever. But if I'm playing chess, for example, against somebody for like $10, I'm not going to use the engine to like cheat because I'm trying to have fun playing. Maybe afterwards I use the engine to study it, you know? So maybe
I know someone who would use it for $10.
For free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand that too. And but that I wouldn't. Yeah, I buy the engine. I buy all the chess products. I buy everything to analyze. I have a chess coach, but I'm still terrible at chess. And when I play for fun. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference. Mm-hmm. Whereas if someone plays competitively, they might want to use it to cheat, to build up their rating or whatever. And I think it's similar in poker too. Amateurs may have GTO Wizard, but I don't think they're trying to. At least the ones who I'm thinking about are not trying to use it in game.
It's also just like the difference in vocabulary. I imagine like Dom's definition of like fish could be like quote unquote like bad reg kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think he's kind of implying that Nacho fits the profile. And like, okay, that's all well and good too. And perhaps maybe that's even true. But it's still speaking more to the ultimate arriving at zero, right? Like if these are the people that you feel are weaponizing the tools and software in order to reduce their negative edge and get it closer to zero, well, the same counterbalance has to happen on the other side. The people who were winning a lot off this person previously are now not winning as much. And there are many, many, many layers to this, right? We can talk HUDs, we can talk MDA, mass data analysis. The list goes on and on. Pre-flop charts. There's just so much that is readily available to you online that you're stripped of live, and you kind of have to memorize. And this even applies to Dom, right? Like the final table of the main event. He's trying to downplay all this stuff, but like he was paid to coach a member of the final table, and what did he do? He showed him pre-flop charts. So it's like to say that this stuff is completely worthless, I think is certainly diminishing the impact. It's more so highlighting, I guess, that good players just know this stuff.
It's also the percentage of the tournaments. A lot of people always say to me, yeah, well, people have used these push fold charts for like 20 years. There used to be these Jaffe charts.
Yeah.
But like they were like they weren't a big part of the tournament because the tournament was more deep stack. People went late regging. Like the average stack size was a lot deeper, so you often weren't shoving and folding. You were often like 40, 50 big blinds deep and going post flop and all that kind of stuff. Now, like
shoving 50 bigs pre.
Yeah, like now 95% of the game is pre-flop at this stage. So it's very different to people who are saying like 15 years ago Jaffe was still around because it didn't even matter. Like there was so much post flop which went on then.
Like at that point, like you might have been the only person in the tournament with 10 bigs, but now everyone has 10 bigs.
Right.
Like if I knew how to play perfect pre-flop from 20 bigs and under, I would be very confident playing any tournament in the world, really.
100%. I mean, we used to have like rebuy tournaments online were such a big thing because everyone used to like accumulate these massive stacks, and that's how it used to be. And they took off the rebuys because they realized like they would rather get re-entry because they charge rake on the re-entry rather than the rebuy. But what that made was basically the average stack size goes lower, and now like this Jaffe charts would be actually not bad compared to like 15 years ago. But like you said, you might have 10 big blinds, but everyone else has 50, so it's very different. But yeah.
So I guess shifting gears a little bit, I want to get to the operator side of things because I think that the ball got dropped here many steps along the way, and I think that this is very consistent with ACR along every step of the way, every path that's been even with WPT Gold's account currently trolling them like lightly. I believe one of the posts was kind of hinting at bots where it said max late reg about to close on an ACR tournament, and then it showed a bunch of driverless cars lining up to go reg.
That's so fucking good.
And like Nagy took it upon himself to reply to this. Nagy took it upon himself to reply to this and said like, which staff is this, the new one or the old one? As if like somehow that's at all relevant. Like this is the PR disaster that we're so accustomed to seeing with ACR. And I think that the way that they handled the Nacho could not have been any worse. They could have not said anything at all, and it would have been better than Nacho Barbero is a goofball and we love him. Anyone who's played with, against, or around him knows that he's not a GTO style player. Like that wording in and of itself just drives me insane. Mm-hmm. This like implication that it's like a choice. Like, oh, we're all just picking our style out here. We got a maniac. We got a GTO type guy. You know what I mean? It's like it's strategies are not strategies. There isn't like this weird like I guess identification with the style that you're playing. They go on to say, we're confident he was not using GTO Wizard to gain any advantage for himself at Nacho Barbero, which it's like, you just totally, this is so tone deaf. It just completely misses the mark, in my opinion. And it turns this whole thing into a giant joke, which then does force somebody like yourself to come out as a third party and say like, look, I'm willing to, take one on the chin here and like dive in because I don't trust that this site will. They're still the largest site being utilized in America. They're either second or third in total global market share. So this is like our place to play. And at some point, I know the one thing that you and I don't necessarily see eye to eye on is like how much of this responsibility falls on GTO Wizard. I'm kind of the impression that it's none. They came up with a product and a tool that was needed and demanded for in the community, and fair play is not necessarily on them. I do think that they've taken some steps to ensure that fair play exists. I
don't disagree with that, by the way.
Oh, fair. Well, yeah, okay. I guess like then you're more speaking to the optimal world where it's like, I wish you guys would.
No, I just don't think that poker sites should have them as partners. I don't think the reason why GTO Wizard is big is because they have so much money for marketing, and that's because like people work with them or whatever. You know, like I feel like they should be like blanked out. I think they should be like they should be held like, oh, like these are the bad guys. Like they can do whatever they want. They have no.
Right.
If I was GTO Wizard, I would do the same. I was like, everyone works with us. They have all these contracts. We set this thing up where basically we make sure everyone cheats on your site, and then we sell like a consultancy service where we then catch the cheats for you. So then we now have extra money to do marketing to get new customers. Like, of course, their business is incredible. Like, I would buy a piece of the company tomorrow because it's amazing. But I just don't think any like Coinbooker, we don't work with them, you know. And I said to Coin, like, there's no way we should work with GTO Wizard whilst they do this. If they add delay on a Sunday, if they add delay during World Series, if they add a delay here, let's partner with them and let them help us with security. But until then, let's not fund their operation. And we don't. You know, that's a big thing which we're not going to do. And I feel like all the companies should do that. The question, and even World Series, because World Series is associated with GG, and GG's biggest threat to their games is GTO Wizard. But I assume, and I have no idea about how much, I assume all of these companies are paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions, which then bankrolls GTO Wizard to then do marketing to get all these new people to play and then cheat, and then it just goes around and around and around. There's more people cheating, so GTO Wizard has a better security service to then give to them. They can pay for ambassadors, you know, all this. So kind of stuff.
I would push back strongly. I think that's how you solve the problem. I think that you allow it to perpetuate en masse like that, and then you create something that is large enough to solve. Like, even in Mario's tweet, he said, GTO Wizard has an incredibly powerful tool, and it's everyone's interest to push for change. Introduce delays for solving during peak hours. Enable online sites to cross-check hands and timestamps at scale. That's the service that they offer, is allowing access to those databases, giving all of the information to the actual operator themselves. But
not for free though, right?
No, not for free. But
why not for free?
Well, because they're a business.
Yeah, so they're setting up. They're making a business where they create cheats to then be able to catch the cheats. It's like the police selling drugs to then go and catch the drugs or something like that. Like
I think you're just seeing this too much as them as one solo entity. If you remove them completely from the ecosystem, this all exists at a black market level.
But but people, it was always available at the black market level. You could always buy these things, but people, it maybe happened for like 5% of the field or whatever. Now 100% of the field can do it, and very easily.
Right, but I would argue that that's a better system. When everything is out in the open like that, and it's abundantly clear that it could be utilized by everybody. Now the policing actually, it's a big enough problem where it gets policed to some degree. We're talking about it consistently.
It's not because if you have a black market tool, which let's say 10 people are using in a tournament, the funding you have to make this tool good is like limited. Whereas if GTO Wizard gets, I'm saying random numbers here. Let's say they get millions per month. They can then run the very, very best solves. Like let's say Odin. Odin was bad because they didn't have as many people who used it, so they couldn't invest in the staff and the infrastructure or whatever. Like GTO Wizard can just go and buy Ruse, right? Like Ruse is an incredible tool. GTO Wizard makes so much money from these companies, whatever. Ruse comes out, which is a competitor and a really powerful tool. They can buy it tomorrow, and then the software is really good the next day. Whereas before, all of these black market tools, they had limited funding, limited resources, so they would never be that powerful. Like GTO Wizard has the entire game tree in the best depth possible. AI, like everything
right.
builds.
But it's the opposite. They're way more powerful when the rest of the field has no access. If one person has access to a lookup database and no one else in the field does, that one person gains a substantially larger edge than if 100 people have access or 1,000 people have access. So there's an aspect where the genie's out of the bottle, the floodgates are open. What's happening is all that the nefarious cheating that was taking place and was being brushed under the rug because it wasn't an apparent problem, it wasn't a public problem, it wasn't a problem we spoke of. It was localized to Ali's stable. It was localized to Jake. It was localized to whatever Bryn and their crew were doing, and they were siphoning up all of the money.
On the sites which didn't have security, on PokerStars, for example, which has a proper security team, or some other sites, what happened there was if there was one or two guys using this and the rest of the field weren't, their stats were so close to GTO, and then the sites found them out from these things. Like, for example, there was stuff like turn probes. Like, anyone who played turn probes correctly before, the sites could just, but yeah, these guys are using some lookup tools, they're cheating. Now, if 100% of the field has access to this, it's very hard to find the people who are actually cheating. Before, if someone played perfectly pre-flop or perfectly in free bet pots, for example, like Fedor Cruz, he got found out as well. He would get found out very quickly because he's playing perfectly in 3-bet pots because he had his own lookup tools to do it. Now everyone can play correct, so it's a lot harder to find people who are cheating. If 5% of the field have some tools to cheat, it's very easy to find these people. If 100% of the people have access to cheat, how do you find it? Because everyone has access to it. So like you just allow everyone to cheat basically, which is what happens now, which is why I don't play on these sites. Before, when a few people had lookup tools, I was okay with it because I was like, okay, eventually they're going to get found out. Or even if the site doesn't find them, we have a community ourselves, like high stakes community works together. We can find people who are playing correct in this way. If one guy was coming and nailing 3-bet pots, we would find him and we would kick him out. There's no question about that. Now it's impossible to do that.
Yeah, I think that obviously I don't want to diminish what the high stakes community does. I'm a part of that Discord too, and I think you guys are like incredibly diligent and you're constantly at work, but you're also dealing with like relatively small pools in the high stakes community. It's not representative of all online poker, and I think the bot stuff is a good example of that. The Fedor Cruz is a good example, I think, to bring up that kind of test both sides. I do believe that you're right that security would have eventually caught him, but he was ultimately only caught because he was sloppy and his roommates basically told on him. He passed prior checks. He was cheating on stream for months without getting found out. I think that bigger picture, and when I said that we disagree, maybe I misstated, but maybe where we can circle back to being in full agreement is that this is an operator problem to the core. And I don't think that there's any skirting it any longer. If online poker stands to survive and thrive in any capacity, whether they work with GTO Wizard or they work against GTO Wizard or the next iteration thereof, to me, this is no different than chess.com having to figure out a way to integrate Stockfish, having to figure out a way to integrate, I can't think of the...
I mean, it's only a problem if people stop playing. I don't even, if I was ACR, I would just continue doing the same thing. Like the Venom still gets the same numbers every time. Like, why would they even care?
I'm glad you said that because...
Like, I don't play there, but people still play that, like just because I don't play that doesn't mean they should start like doing this whole change into their business. If I was ACR or GG or all these sites where their numbers are still high, I would just continue doing the same thing. Like,
yeah, so
it works, right?
So I'm really glad that you said that because I think that that's the crux of at least where my stance is on all this. When you came out, I believe it was last January after the bot situation on ACR, he basically said, "I'm taking months off of online poker for the first time in decades." That to me was like the call to arms. That's the putting your foot down, taking a hard stance, and saying like, okay, there is no future online poker if we allow status quo to be what it is. And I don't think anything has changed at all since last January. I understand that Coin has come into the market, and I know that you're an ambassador there and that you want to have change happen from within, and I'm confident that there are conversations taking place where you guys are making strides in the right direction. But at the end of the day, the fact that this is like a web-based lookup tool and everybody's pointing to that as a reason why it can't be policed is...
It can be, but
of course, it's complete bullshit, right? Like, if I go to Dallas, Texas, and I try to look up Pornhub, I can't.
Wait, really?
Wait, what?
No.
I'm never going to fuck... Oh, that's why Luca left.
Yeah, of course. Texas and Florida, you can't... You have to like verify. You have to sign up. You have to go. Basically,
support small businesses.
Yeah, but like it can instantaneously be blocked just at the browser level, right? And I'm sure that there are workarounds. I'm sure that there are things that you could do. Point is that like this is a security issue, and it can't just be as simple as like, oh, they created a web-based tool. Like we're fucked.
They got us.
That's it. Well, they got us. Like let's see how much longer we can run this ruse and
Hands
have people
tied,
keep
brother.
showing up.
It does
right?
make it significantly easier. Though. Like,
of course. I'm not trying to
I can
downplay
my phone
it.
on VPN and just be like checking every hand like this, especially when it's just pre-flop, like literally just clicking. Don't even need to like select boards or whatever. It's just and you're in the button first hand, the next hand you're in the cutoff, whatever. Like you're just moving to the next place. It's not very difficult to do.
Yeah, and if you're single tabling, of course, this is much more amplified.
Imagine you're in Eastern Europe or whatever. Like I used to live in Budapest. Like I remember the staff get paid like $1 an hour. So I had a friend who was getting $1 an hour in a job. Like, you have 10 guys on all their tables. Just you have a tool for that. You have your phone ready for this tournament. You have your phone for this tournament. All on browsers, and I'll click the buttons. Like.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just more effort that way. You know, like you have to do something,
Yep.
and there's never going to be like a perfect answer because obviously people in Dallas are still getting on sites that they shouldn't be allowed to. I suppose it's kind of the same idea.
Well, it's more so, yes, along those lines, it's more so just a clear indication that that what has stood the test of time for the last 20 plus years or whatever for online poker has to end, and it has to change in a sweeping manner.
Maybe it's changing. Maybe like thing is, if people were winning, say 10% a year ago, now they win at 7. There's no way to gauge that because there's always going to be just outliers who are just winning bigger because of variance. So, like maybe it is changed in that last 1 year since I made that post. Maybe win rates have dropped by 30%, but just no one knows because there will always be winners, always losers. The sample size is so small, you never know. So like it is probably changing, and we just don't know. You know, we'll never know. And then more and more people drop out until the next sun runners come through, and then they'll drop out. You know,
the thing is, I don't know if that's the case though. If win rates continually decrease, you end up with a bunch of people just breaking even, paying rake,
which is what the sites want.
Exactly. It seems like it's actually almost a more sustainable model for
if
the
everybody
sites.
gets GTO Wizard and plays perfectly, some people will sun run, some people will go on many year downswings, and the net is just break even.
I think ACR added this thing this weekend. I saw it was like the AI racers. Have you seen this? So basically, they have these guys who I think, and again, don't quote me on this. I think that you basically have the bot who plays for you until you're in the money, then you take over. It's called like AI. I think it just started on Saturday. So basically, you can choose. They have these different names of the races. So you can have like the blue car, the red car, whatever. And you can like, I want this guy to play for me. And you can see the stats that they've played in all the tournaments for other people. And they race you to the money. And if they bust, then no problem. But they play basically perfect until you're in the money. Then you can play for the bigger stakes. Like I think that's what is being started this week.
I mean, that's effectively the way that Ali ran his stable. It's very true.
It's a tier-based system.
Yeah, he had entry-level guys. He had mid, and then he and Fitzpatrick would take over the final tables and like, you know, just raking all the money. It does seem like that everything is about time, right? It's all about increasing hourly. It's all about bettering your bottom line. And I guess what I'm trying to say, it's not, like I said, it's not that they need to ban all of this stuff or figure any of this stuff out. It's more so that some sort of sweeping change needs to occur at the level of the operator. And, you know, maybe we were headed in the right direction when everything became PKO. Maybe it's, evolving into some other format of online tournaments. Maybe it's finding some sort of tournament cash hybrid, right? Like, I don't know what the answer is necessarily, but it does seem like operators need to be investing not just in security, but in product development to a very high degree, right? Cash games are all but falling by the wayside. We've talked about this a lot, but what was high stakes when I was coming up is now like unfathomable. What was mid stakes is now nosebleeds and so on down the line. It just seems very difficult in a true zero-sum game, and maybe that's the final coup de grace whenever it comes to online poker, is that enough volume is getting pumped out that the game actually does truly just regress to being zero-sum for all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
except the operator.
Maybe it comes from like the licenses. Like maybe they need to. I'm not sure what you need to get a license as a poker room and what things you need to do to ensure the safety and the integrity of the game. But maybe it comes from the license point of view. You know, like, can World Series have a license in Vegas if they don't have the right security and they don't offer a fair game? Is that a thing?
No, my understanding is Nevada Gaming holds a very heavy hand over WSOP, and that's why, at least for a long time, we had a lot more confidence in their platform than others. So when it comes to things like bots, I feel a lot more confident that WSOP is clean. And also true with like multi-accounting, the way their infrastructure is set up, it's nearly impossible. But there's a lot of other things that I would imagine Nevada Gaming is just way behind the times on, and they're probably not held to a very high regard whenever it comes to actual security over. So it's like we're seeing more and more operators dip their toes in the water right now. WPT launches Club WPT Gold. It's going to be a sweepstakes model. GG buys up the WSOP license, so they're looking to make a push into the United States. Like, this market is becoming open to the public again. ACR has been a bad actor in the space for a long time while raking in money hand over fist. At the end of it all, no one is ceasing to pay their rake, and that's I guess why I take such a hard stance that, hey, guys, maybe this isn't beatable. And I know that, like, for someone like you who's made an entire career off of online and, you know, that's your heart and soul and you don't want to see it fall by the wayside, it probably feels like I'm against you. But that's not at all what I'm trying to message. It's the same thing as what you were trying to message by demonstrating that Nacho's not out here cheating and, you know, representing the average player online. I want the game itself to be marketed in a way that makes everyone feel like they have a shot. And I do feel like live poker does a pretty good job of that.
It does.
Online is just like the marketing of the space, if you're at all honest, is just so dark and
I don't know why
gloomy.
anyone would play online. Like, I don't know. And that's sad to say, but I just don't know why you would play.
Just volume. It's just
like
to get
volume and
hands in.
convenience.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to leave your house. You can play many tables at once.
Right.
But
And I guess if you're an honest guy, you're not cheating, then it's not great. But if you're cheating,
if you're cheating, it's great. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why anyone would play cleanly online. You know, like, I wouldn't do because I don't want to cheat. But I don't know why you would play cleanly online. I just don't get it. Like, unless you're just you have those degenerative needs, or you want to gamble, or like you just enjoy it as a hobby. Like, sure. But anyone who wants to play, I just don't get it.
It's just also a learning tool. Like when you can play X amount of tournaments, play X amount of volume, just get a lot of repetition in. You know, like, yeah, you might be losing some EV to people that are cheating, but you learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people don't like to say study, like studying feels boring, but when you're actually like in like real life playing, it feels more.
It's very easy to get hand histories, you know, stuff like that. You can look at like whatever. You can put it on Poker Tracker 4 and just you can actually put it in GTO Wizard and shit. Like,
yeah, I think when you're coming up, it's
you pay the cheat tax.
well, it's kind of an important.
it's true.
It's kind of an important step to your development, but it's so hard for me to hold any perspective to because when I was coming up, it was free money, right? Like I'm by no stretch of the imagination a good online player, but like I had like 1,000% ROI over my career. It's just like a dumb amount of money was getting thrown around. You could bonus whore. You could do so much to just like ensure that you had a sustainable bankroll that eventually you could transition into live. Now it's like the wild, wild west. All of the same necessary components of development are still there. Putting in volume, analysis, database review, MD, like all this stuff that will build a bulletproof strategy for you to carry over elsewhere. But yeah, you're paying not just the rake, but potentially a heavy cheat tax.
You're paying a cheat tax, but at the same time, it's like you're paying some amount of money. Let's just say you're only playing mid stakes, like 55s and lower, and put in a bunch of volume for a couple years. Look at the hands and do it the right way and get relatively good if you have the right people in your corner, and then try to scale that to playing live where it's not possible to get cheat taxed as easy, I suppose.
Also, like closer.
But then there's variance there.
It's tough. It's tough to do with expenses and stuff like this. But anyway, I said to Coin Poker what we should do, and I don't mind if ACR steal this idea. Is I think they should have a tournament every day called like the Daily Goofball, which is basically what they do. It like they make fun of it. They have a fun name, whatever. But basically, whoever wins that tournament each day, their security team does like a full investigation of the account for that tournament. So check every hand they play, check the final table, check GTO Wizard against all the timestamps of every hand, and then basically if you play this one tournament, you know that this is like a safe tournament because if someone wins and they cheated, they will like redistribute the funds somehow, you know. So like,
Right.
Bro, how crazy is that though? That should be the expectation of every event.
Right.
I know.
This is like Zoe Karen playing the main event.
for them to do that for every event.
I thought you were going to go the other way and say like they should have one event a day
Where you
where
can cheat.
everybody can just use Wizards.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they like get a free pass to do it for the rest of the day.
No,
that's
because-
like Zoe Karen fucking bagging the main event after he sold 200% of himself or
Right.
something like
The
that.
Daily Wizard's sick as well. Yeah, I think both of them. It'd be interesting if you had both of
Daily
those.
Wizard and the Daily Goofball.
If you had both of those and see which one would be more successful, which one would be more popular, you know, like you would
Well, what's the incentive to play the Daily Wizard?
just I cheat better than you cheat. Kind
I
of.
mean-
But if you play that, then
Effectively, you're making pennies on the dollar for studying. Right.
right.
It's a study tool where you could potentially profit
Well, I would
alongside
hope
of
the
it.
Wizard wouldn't do well, obviously. I would hope the goofball one would do better.
They should do that for all tournaments, but like make it random, right? Like almost like random drug tests that they have in
Well, I think they do that, or at least in the past
that's what they
have.
claim
They
to
do,
do,
right.
right?
I don't think so.
no, yeah.
I know that in the past, like having spoken.
Stars did this.
Yeah, I was going to say
Stars
Stars and Party. They said that they invested a lot into AI to basically seek out this.
At least
this
it'd be
sort
a
of
little
anomaly.
bit of a
I don't trust
deterrent.
the AI.
Right. I'm with Pads on this. Like at the end, the existence of bots indicates that the AI is probably not doing a great job of picking up any like foul play or whatever the case may be.
You need professional poker players to do it themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I can spend it, I can look over someone's 4 hours. I can spend 4 hours looking over someone win a daily goofball and say if they're cheating or not. Have a decent idea.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like the rake is way too high for that responsibility to be falling back onto the community. But there are a lot of very equipped poker players who would love to take on a secondary career that are for hire.
Or people who have lost their career because of this.
Right,
and now
precisely.
Want to fight back.
Yeah,
and
but
everything.
are the sites actually going to want to pay somebody to do that?
Obviously not. That's at the end of the day, I think that this all keeps circling back to the fact that for better or for worse, the existence of online is largely a honeypot for the operators.
Yeah. And they don't have an incentive to.
But I still feel like they would get more rake because of it. Like a lot of people must be like me who don't play because of the concerns, and if they did something about them, they would play. Like I don't play World Series of Poker online during the summer. I feel like that's crazy. Like if I don't play that,
Right.
there must be at least 100 others who don't do it, right?
Why don't you play that?
Because I just know I'm going to get cheated. Like I know people are going to use these tools and they're going to cheat. Like I don't see it as like a tournament with integrity or a tournament where like winning's going to show it. I feel like I'm just playing against a bunch of people who are cheating, whether it be multi-counting, whether they be looking up tools or, I mean, are you like excited to play?
No, I know I'm gambling. Look, I don't play toward it. Everything that you spoke about today, from structures to lack of post-flop play to few river decisions, all the way down to the security issues, are all the things that drove me out of MTTs. And I'm very happy to accept and acknowledge that tournaments aren't meant to be poker in the truest sense of the word. It's not meant to be a game of chicken where you're using wits and wagers to outmaneuver each other, right? There are very specific strategies based off of the structures themselves, and with them, you're incentivized to adjust according to the different. And look, it's an art. The people that are able to understand tournaments and the breadth of knowledge that's necessary in order to be able to navigate everything from a 5 big blind stack to a 100 big blind stack, God bless. It just doesn't interest me as somebody who is much more interested in putting people to a 500 big blind river decision.
I get it.
It's like it's like the Matrix. There's like chaotic good and like evil and like all that. It's wizard, goofball, good, evil.
Right.
Right. So you have like good goofball, Nacho, and then you have like wizard, evil, Fedor Cruz, and everyone
Right.
falls somewhere in
Yeah.
this little grid.
And like good goofball tends to gravitate towards live cash. Like that's a party.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a good time there.
Wizard, evil, MTT's online.
Yeah, that's
Wizard,
precisely.
Evil, MTT.
When there's that question, like which is more tougher to be, like a tournament player or a cash game player, what everyone
Yeah.
always speaks
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
should be tournaments, but because of the way the structures are and because of the way everything else is and the tools, whatever, it's cash games. Do you know what I mean? If it was like MTTs in its truest form and cash games in its truest form, I'm very, very passionate that tournaments are a lot more sophisticated and tougher to be really good at than cash games, because you have so many different variables. You have like post-flop bounties, post-flop mystery bounties, post-flop ICM, all this stuff. But in the current structure, it's so simplified and like literally like a monkey can do it, follow these tools and do it. The cash games is just like so far more complex than the current tournament.
Yeah, I
structures,
also think it's a bit of apples and oranges. Like I think the depth of cash games is unrivaled. I think the breadth of tournament knowledge is also unrivaled. So it's kind of like
it should be.
It's kind of like a linear timeline with tournaments. You have to know all of these different. You have to be like a specialist.
We don't. That you should be.
Right, you should. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying,
Right,
yeah.
you should have to be a specialist in like dozens of different arenas, right?
Exactly.
Where with cash, you only need to be a specialist in one focused lane.
Exactly.
But the depth of knowledge that you need to have is just basically endless. And then there's a lot of branches that come off of that whenever you start to add in squid or stand up or bomb pots or all these other fun carnival games. I think that's always a fun conversation to have. I agree with you though. neither in the online landscape, at least, are in the purest form. Cash is still dinosaur, 2 big blind, no ante for the most part. Some have added an ante, but like no carnival games, nothing else really being added. And MTTs, it's like either full-blown PKO or traditional re-entry, where it's just about racing to the end of registration. And then you see something like what we saw in Ignition, where somehow bots are able to just populate an entire table and collude to get into the money. And that's another great example of an operator that just truly does not give a fuck beyond the rake. I don't think that's the exception anymore. I think it's much more of the rule. It's just places like GG are better at marketing the fact that they're just dipping their hands in the honeypot. And I'm not so sure that there's anything that's going to alter that other than a mass exodus from players.
Hey, man, they let Sven go to the Cove.
They did. They sent a lot of Svens. A lot of Svens to the Cove.
Many.
And it falls on us too, right? Like as kind of the older guard that came up through the Moneymaker era and then maybe that next generation, like the Fedor type of age, we don't need to be advocating for these sites. So many of us are happy to take a bag and just kind of be like, I can do more as a part of them. But, and I don't want to throw shade, but like when you look at the ACR team pros, and this is no offense, like I know Rob very well. I know that he tries his goddamn heart out.
He does,
but the amount of change that he can actually impact is next to zero.
Yeah. But most people who are watching this probably are as passionate about poker as we are. Like, have a similar idea. They want it to be pure. They want it to be clean. So there's a lot of people like us. So what do? We just retire. We just give up, or like.
Right. No, I'm with you.
What do like the mass do? Like,
and that's the dream too, is to have somebody come knocking at your door and say, "Hey, here's $300K a year to rep my site." You know what I mean? But it's like at the end of the day, what is Rampage Poker going to do for me? If I feel like Global isn't treating me fairly, WPT Global, or like what is Darren Elias going to do for me if BetMGM isn't treating me fair? You know what I mean? It's like I
think they do have more pull than you would imagine.
I really don't. I think they're just marketing tools. Maybe Fedor at GG would have a little bit more pull. Maybe Daniel at GG would have a little more pull. Obviously, you at Coin, but Coin is more of a startup at this point, so it's kind of understood that you're going to be hired for more influence purposes than marketing.
In what sense do you think they would have more pull?
I just feel like if Rampage went, I don't think WPT do anything bad, so like it's a good example.
Right.
I feel like if Rampage was just there, like, hey guys, I have these concerns, like I feel like we should fix them. I feel like if the staff were like, nah, let's not fix them. I just don't see them saying no.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I think it's more comes from like from what I've seen at Party and from other people I've worked with, is that when ambassadors want to get involved, the sites are very happy to work with them. It's more that they just don't want to get involved. That's what I've mostly seen. But the bigger question, I think, is for most people who are watching, who are just like enthusiastic about poker, like poker, want to play clean, what do they do? Do they just like stop poker, or like what should they? If
you're a tournament player, you travel the tour. If you're a cash player,
it's so unsustainable to train the tour. They're just gonna go broke. You either sunrun or go broke. Like that. I think it's very sad. The whole thing's so sad.
I think that as a sidebar is another huge issue that the entire community as a whole faces, is that the thing that we've created that props up the entire industry, which is MTTs, the glory, the chase, the big rewards, the big payoffs for small buy-ins and things like that, the actual economics of it don't work, right? At least not in the purest form, where you're very unlikely to be cheated, which would be live. So we're talking low volume, high cost, very minimal returns. And then whenever you see it at, when you take the regulator off, like online, and you just let it fly, where people can put in mass volume, it's not just DFS, it's worse, right? Like not only does all the money funnel to the top, but then also enough cheaters come in to where there's no more money to funnel anywhere except to the operator. And now the rake just becomes unbeatable. This is so problematic for the grander future of poker as a whole, because our number one marketing is MTTs. You just cannot market a 5-10 game at Potawatomi in Milwaukee.
You also could, like, I started playing because of the cash game players like 20 years ago, because of cash game players who'd made it up, and I wanted to like follow their journey, whether it be Andrew Roble, Tom Dwan, Phil Galfond. Like I think my generation came up because we saw them when Coin Poker did this like cash game challenge last month. Like I didn't know any of the guys. I knew like 5, and I knew them because of tournaments. Like I knew Barak played tournaments. Like there was like these 30 guys, and probably nobody knew 27 of them were, because all cash games have been anonymous for the last 6 years. So all these people, anyone who has risen up the stakes and managed to make it successfully, no one knows who they are. Like they're not like glorified, and none of them have contracts or sponsorships. You know, like it's more like,
and none of them want. As far as I
think a lot of them
maybe like a Marinelli would, or
I think a lot of them are very interested. A lot of them all volunteered to be in this thing because they wanted the exposure of it and the idea of it. They thought it was cool. And in the past, they've just been restricted to these anonymous sites or apps, or playing on sites where you can't rail the tables. There's no real heaven or anything like that.
Right.
So like if you're 18 now wanting to get into poker, there's no reason to wanna be a professional poker player, right? Like tournaments seemed like they're dead. Everyone's cheating. Cash games, you don't have any evidence of other people successfully building their way up. Like,
and they're cheating too. Like,
yeah.
Not like at the like it's just as easy to cheat in cash. It's almost easier than it is in tournaments. You know, like you're playing static 100 big blinds, 6-handed.
I think you need to appeal to the 18 to 25-year-old like young males. Like I feel like they are always like who bees your next generation of people.
Well, I think online does that because of the low barrier of entry. You can get in for $10.
It should do, but I think you wouldn't pursue it as a career. You know, like I got in for $10, but then I saw that I could go to $100, $1,000, $1 million, whatever. I saw
it filters for the Sunrunners.
Now there's just like I see someone winning a Venom for $1 million. That's not really like something which you can aspire to do. It's not like a realistic thing, you know. Whereas before,
I want to win the Venom too.
Before you had Supernova Elite, I was like, okay, well, I know I'm going to get my bankroll from $100 to $10,000. Once I get there, I'm going to be Supernova. Once I get Supernova, I'm going to have 50,000. Once I have 50,000, I'm going to grind NL200 and make 100,000 a year. There's a clear path of how you could be an online professional. There's zero clear path now how you can be an online professional poker player.
It's win a tournament or cheat.
It's Bing. Yeah, bingo cheat. Like it's insane. Bingo cheat.
You either choose chaotic good goofball, Sunrun, or evil wizard cheat.
It is pretty fascinating because I think a lot of people who would be in our shoes to give advice as far as like I want to pursue poker as a career, what do you suggest? I think the only response would be get good, study, right? Because like that's been the biggest shift.
What is good though? Let's say I want to get good at tournaments. What, get like 2% ROI?
Right.
Because it's tough to go from 0 to 2.
Well, that's the dream killer, right?
Right.
I think that's been,
get to 50.
Yeah. I think that's been the biggest shift. Like the Overton window has shifted so far where, 15 years ago, the discussion would have been like, oh, well, I think you should pursue cash because of all these reasons and, your path forward. Or I think you should pursue MTTs with, all these reasons. Now, the big shift became like everybody's studying. So if you want my advice, you need to catch up to the collective. So you have to put in a lot of work and study. And then whenever they come back and say, well, okay, now I've done that. What's my expectation? What's my path? We're left with, I don't know, man. I was an early adopter. I got lucky and I'm in the private scene. So good luck trying to get there, I guess.
I always, throughout the last 20 years, always said, poker's good. You could be a poker player. Like if you try hard enough, anyone can make it to the high stakes, whatever. Like this is probably the first year where I would not recommend someone to play poker, and that's pretty sad. Like I've always, even during like dark times, I've always like, no, you can do it. Just like, there's ways around. But now, I really don't think so.
I feel like the answer, the way to do it is different, but at the same time, you also need experience because you can't just say. At least if you're trying to move into playing like high stakes live, like if the path is get really good, learn theory really well, learn final tables, MTTs very well, and then once I or whoever you want to talk like use is someone that thinks like, okay, you're good enough to play high stakes with the knowledge that you have, and this might take years to get that good, so you need overhead to be paid while doing all this stuff too. Now you go play these high stakes things under a backing deal and also execute playing $10,000 like plus tournaments. Like it's not easy, like almost impossible.
But like it's like 0.1%. Yeah. For every Landon, there's like 3,000 other people.
And even for every Landon, like from my perspective, I've had a lot of internal frustration that I had to work out in my own head because I couldn't understand why his ROI wasn't higher in spots, why his bottom line year over year wasn't higher in spots. It's like, I know how much better than the collective field he's playing it. Why is there no return? And then you have to have that conversation with yourself and say, because it's not free. It's not free
was
anymore.
if you were twice as good as someone before, they made 20% ROI, you made 40. They were like, if you're twice as good as a professional who made 20%, you're making 40. That's huge. Now, if Landon's twice as good as someone who makes 2%, he makes 4.
Right.
It's not. It's like
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
oh, like I won an all in when you didn't. And
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Like in my head 3 years ago, it was like, why aren't you playing the studio? And now it's like, why are you playing the studio? What are we doing here? You know, this is just a fun gamble.
yeah.
Patrick did well.
Yeah, but I was also saying that to him a year ago too. You know, like I was always telling you, right? Like these things are just dumb. Like we're here for 1%, 2%, or you know maybe 3%. It's just because I'm used to coming from the background where you win 50%. You know, I've been staking these guys who've been making 50 every year, like hundreds of guys. So I'm like, why were we there for 1%?
Maybe this is just ultimately a bit of a marketing problem, right? Like the things that are being propped up are actually the things that lead to the greatest path of failure for the vast majority of people who enter the arena. You know, it's like not that I want to like toot the horn of the arena that I'm in, but that actually is scalable. Even if it remains semi-private,
Like live cash?
yeah, even if it remains semi-private or private, the more people that influx into it, the more of those games that will crop up.
You can still
right?
play like 5-10 live, and it's hard, but you can still make a living.
Yeah, I mean it's hard compared to 2010.
Sure.
There's still an availability to make 5 to 8 big blinds per hour. But
by the way, I don't want to be like dismissive about people who do this, but is it really hard? Like I look at Bellagio 5-10 games every day.
Right.
It's just full of like amateurs. I feel like I played yesterday 10, 20, 40 in Bellagio, and it was like 1 reg and 7 amateurs, and on a Monday.
It's like the dom logic of like fish versus not fish, because like the people that are like amateurs might be winning.
yeah, I have to let you in a little secret. Everybody,
Jeremiah and 7 amateurs.
those other 7 guys are all regs.
No, they weren't. I guarantee you they weren't.
And outside the Bellagio 5-10, most of the games are just really reggy when it comes to 5-10.
No, but
Yeah.
to your point, that's what the ecosystem is fostering, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're seeing a greater separation at the tails than maybe we've ever seen, right? Like we glorified it in the heyday where it was like, oh, Tom Dwan, he's one of one, you know, nobody can. But the truth of the matter is he wasn't in rare air. No. A lot of the big winners were all in that, you know, conversation. They were just doing it all very differently. Durr was this like wild maniac who was winning a bunch of money. Robo was this surgeon who was just like, you know, taking dollar after dollar, but they were all in that, you know, arena. Now it's like there are a lot of 101s. You know, there are people who are just winning 3 or 4 times the amount of anybody else in their collective pool, and most of the money funnels to them. And then you have this large gathering in the middle, and then a couple VIPs at the end that are contributing the majority of the loss.
That's why I said to Landon about the studio, like I feel like there's so many people who are like around about 0 to 1%.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably have 2 or 3 or like maybe 4 guys who are like way better than those guys there. And maybe they make like 7 or 8% because they just see the game a little bit better. I think that's kind of how it looks like now.
I think so too. And I think for those guys, they have so much money that making 7% on, you know, $1 million worth of buy-ins a year is pretty fucking good.
And it's also like a good environment. You're not doing that all the time either. You know, the studio only runs.
It marries like recreation with occupation type of thing.
Right.
And they enjoy themselves. But it's truly unsustainable for the vast majority. You know, we were looking at some of the guys in the top 20. We were looking at their Hendons. And
top 20 what, sorry?
Top 20 all-time money earners.
Okay.
We were like looking at their Hendons.
Who are some people like, just so I can kind of think?
Like
Kuhn,
Dan Smith,
Ike,
Kuhn,
Chidwick.
Yeah, Davies, Chidwick, Bryn, you know, and
all of the guys you've said have gone on like 2 to 3 year downswings where they've like not cashed anything.
100%. And that was going to be my takeaway. So some of them, like if you look at Dan Smith's Hendon, it's super feast or famine. There are years where he just has like 15 million and years where he has like 1.
Chidwick too. Chidwick's like the best, and he had like, I think he was known to be like the unluckiest guy at high stakes because he was the best player and didn't cash for like didn't win anything for like years.
Yeah, Brewer went through something similar to this. Even Seth Davies, there was a point where like Davies cashed for like 4 million, like 6 years in a row. And that looks great on paper. That's 24 million in lifetime earnings. But when you hammer out the ROI of that, he probably broke even for 6 years.
And like you're playing 300Ks, 250Ks, 100Ks, 25Ks 4 times. Like,
yeah.
Well,
and it's not an indictment against his skill. It's not saying he's not one of the best or anything like that. It's just a clear representation of how low the return on investment is whenever you're playing in such a competitive atmosphere. And yeah, man, it just feels like we're building a vehicle to run into a brick fucking wall. Like we're all the crash test dummies.
Yeah.
You know?
And if let's say Davies was like the 10th best player in the world, there'll be somebody who's the 20th best who will be seen as better than him every year. Correct. Because they're just on a better sun run.
Yeah.
Like they check raise a spot where there's some guy to fold. And it's like the difference between winning a tournament or not.
Well, I think, Jonathan Jaffe, you know him? He does like a poll every year. He asks the top like 30 guys in the world who they think is the top 5 players in the world. And it's always like, they always just say whoever's like won the most. Then the next year when they ask them, if they haven't won, they don't put them in the top 5, even though like the skill set hasn't really changed so much, which like, I think he's writing a book and it's going to come out of this.
It's like, oh, like they must be doing something different this year than other years. It's like kind of win all ins when you're that good.
Literally. And then you get confidence from that maybe or whatever, sure.
Jaffe's trajectory is so interesting. I'm glad to see he's doing more like public stuff. So I've known him since like 04, 05, back in the Turning Stone days. And like his trajectory, he's always mostly been an MTT guy. He probably dabbled in cash a little bit. Yeah, online he was heads up, sit and goes. Live he was mostly MTTs. But yeah, there was this time where he was good friends with our friend John Ford. They were battling in hyper heads up, sit and goes, and he was crushing. Then he kind of vanished for a little while. Then he was like Nicky P's first backer, Petrangelo to be clear, not or whether he was his backer or his peace buyer or whatever. He had like a big chunk of like Nicky when he first got into high rollers and stuff like that. And then eventually like he got convinced to study, like late 2010s, like maybe 2018, 2019, something like that. They were finally just like, maybe you should take this a little more seriously, because he was just always, he was a madman. Just an absolute maniac.
I think
he probably still is.
My perception is that he still hasn't studied.
I think he studies pretty hard. If you watch
Jaffe?
Jonathan, not Jared. Yeah. Okay. Big Tuna ain't studying shit.
I would bet that he doesn't, from listening to his podcasts and stuff. I think he doesn't. He thinks about the game a lot and he thinks deeply and he speaks about it maybe like hand issues with friends. But I'm pretty sure...
You mean like he's not doing button 30 versus trainer?
I'm pretty sure he's not looked at a solver until like 2 months ago. That's my perception. And I think that's what he said.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it's been that recent, especially just like with who he surrounds himself with. But yeah, you could possibly be right. But he had a very Nick Mamoni-esque approach, where it was just ram and jam at all times. Nick also
he 5-bet me yesterday.
Mamoni
on flop.
He had it
in what?
On flop. Online tournament. No,
I thought we were playing live poker.
No, I check. I click raise. He click again. I click again. He says no. I click again. I say okay. I say okay.
He had it. He had it. I promise.
Yeah, he had it. Yeah. The 3-bet's garbage. The 5-bet though, he had it.
He thinks you're crazy. He's not going to try to outclick you.
I am crazy.
He just wants to give you.
I should have went all in. I had a flush draw.
Unreal.
I kind of had it.
Any final thoughts before we wrap on this subject?
I think we're fucked.
Hey man, you're athlete of the year.
Well, yeah, I might have to get a visa for US now. That's what it seems like my plan is.
I gotta tell you, you're taking a lot of weight off my shoulders by taking this stance, because I think that
you're supposed to be like the happy guy.
Well, I think I'm just often positioned as an adversary to all of this, but I just try to be very realistic, and I don't have a dog in the fight. Like, I'm not out there battling in those streets. So I think people view it as like, oh, you want to see it fall because you don't play there anyway. It's like, I want to see it flourish.
Man, it really is crazy. Just like, as in someone that plays some of these stuff on Sundays, like just big online day, like there's still a lot of money for first. And I feel like a lot of the vehicle building is just like the hopium that like you're going to win all ins on that Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, you might be Ethan who just ships ACR Venom for $700K today and never looks back.
I think Chinese economic theory is like people under 25, it's like plus EV for them to buy the lottery every weekend, even though it's minus EV, because the like risk reward is so good. It's like similar with tournaments. Like you can win the Venom, and if you're losing 1%, whatever, it's not bad because like the upside is so big like they're going from like 100,000 bankroll to $1 million is like such a big thing.
Agreed.
Going down to like 95, whatever, doesn't really matter too much.
Yep.
So I think like Chinese economic theory is to like buy the lottery if you're young. I could be wrong about that. Please, comments don't kill me. But that's what someone told me once. So I buy the lottery still.
They got you good. Customer for life.
I'm a lifer. It just renews the subscription every week.
Renew lottery subscription.
So I think tournaments is kind of the same thing. If you're young and have a little bit of money but not too much, play tournaments and try to get lucky, which is what the sites want you to do.
Right. So the real thing is you have to build a plan for what happens after the win.
Yeah.
And that's where people probably fail. Same thing with the lottery.
Yeah.
You know, the theory has to get taken past the negative EV buy for the plus EV gain, right? You have to be on the other side of now what?
Gamble really hard, hope you win, keep trying,
Cheat.
And then when you get there, if you cheat. Well, that's if you want to be on the bottom left quadrant of the grid. Right. Top right is you keep trying, you hope you don't get to like 35 and have no money.
Well, I'll tell you what. Top left, a couple of goofballs having a good time.
Top right.
No, that's top left.
Goofball good.
Yeah. Oh, that's your right. Right, we're mirrored.
Shout out Nacho.
I have it mirrored.
Just silly, if you're a silly goofball, like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Do the things.
Myself and Blez will be playing on Poker Go tonight. The high stakes duel.
Nice.
Episode 1 comes out today. Half PLO, half no limit. $100,000 minimum buy-in. It's a cash game, so there's a lot at stake. It'll wrap tomorrow for the second episode. Once both episodes are out, we'll do a recap. Didn't want to spoil any of the results, but you guys will find out within the next 48 hours or so. Pads, as always, appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you're doing for the community, having a voice, and being able to say the hard thing from time to time. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back again tomorrow, noon Pacific, same time as always. We might even get Blez in the studio if I can get him out of bed. We'll see what happens. We'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Peace.
Peace.